To tell like it is, guys, welcome back to another episode of Coaching Up. Like I said, guys, we're gonna keep this one going every week, Tuesdays and Thursdays. Coaching Up on this channel, guys, the original, the one and only Coaching Up. And hey guys, before we get started, make sure you guys subscribe to the channel. A lot of you guys are watching the videos but not subscribing to the channel, so you guys make sure you hit that subscribe button. Also hit that notification button, so next time I put a video, be the first ones to get it. Also, guys, hit the description below, hit all those awesome discount codes and promo codes that will help save your life or change your life for the better. Anyway, we're gonna get started, guys. We're actually critiquing Nick Trigili, critiquing Regan Grimes. That was actually a request, so I'm like, all right, man, let's do it up. Let's see what's up. Let's see if Nick's giving some good advice to Regan, and see how things go. Let's go. All right.
I really enjoy doing this, talking about different things they're doing, explaining them a little more in depth, just giving my perspective on things because I think you guys enjoy that part.
Okay, so Nick is doing this. This is what he does. This is exactly what he does. So hey, let's see if he gives us some good advice. Let's go.
Regan basically goes through a leg workout.
Regan.
So let's roll this clip. Let's not waste any more damn time. And let's see what Regan and Milo
let's get at it
together. So here we go.
Let's start off. All right. First doing hamstring curls.
Squeezing, no power.
All right, so the first thing I notice is the very strict form on the hamstring curls, the way he has his feet positioned, the way his toes are pointed, and these are all things I think you guys should pay close attention to when you're doing your hamstring curls.
Okay, why?
Toes should always be down unless you're trying to do something different, which we're not going to talk about in this video, but in a future video.
Okay, hold on a sec. So number one, his form is good right now. Obviously, his form is good because what we want to do when we're working on hamstring, especially when we're isolating on some like machine, like, you know, lying hamstring curls, we want to drive our hips into the bench and then have a slight little bit of like glute activation, and then make sure our core is engaged because we want to really isolate the knee flexing. We want that hamstring to pull up. So like the hamstring's basically like sitting obviously the back of your leg, but it's basically like a bicep, right? Same idea. Now, when in terms of like how your feet are pointed, whether they're pointed down or up, which you probably meant like plantar flex or dorsal flex. So plantar flex is basically like if you're like this, like plantar flex is when you're on your toes like this, and dorsal flexion is when your toes are pointed basically to, I would say, your shin, like pulled up to whatever. The only difference that makes is how it activates your hamstring. So now, if you want to make things really, really, really hard when you're doing hamstring curls, point your toes, go plantar flex. When you're doing that, you like, especially for bodybuilders, if you think about being in that position of being like in a side chest, a side tricep, and you're pointing your toes and hamstring just drops, you're hitting a lot of the hamstring there. I'm not going to get in detail exactly what parts of the hamstring because there's a ton, they're like a bunch of cords that are sitting there. There's a ton of them that do different things when in terms of like, internal rotation or external rotation, knee flexion, all those things that have to be said a little more than that. So that's actually like very wrong when in terms of like pointing your toes. You want to point your toes and pull your toes, both doing that. I actually recommend doing them both, especially doing something like a hamstring curl when you're doing like seated hamstring curls. Pointing your toes doing seated hamstring curls is absolutely amazing. Or let's say you're doing lying dumbbell hamstring curls. You have to be plantar flex when you do them, and it makes it that much harder because, again, you're engaging your hamstring a lot more. You're engaging your sole, like your calf. So that's not that solid advice. Let's keep going.
Video, I will discuss why you would have your toes.
I hope he does discuss. I hope he does discuss that.
Your toes are pointed down, so you're flexing your hamstring. Treat your hamstrings, guys, and your training like a bicep.
So yeah, it's right. It's similar because it's the back of the leg. It's called the bicep femoris. It's basically, your bicep of the femur, right? The bicep femoris. What is right? Sure.
You need to do full range of motion.
100% full range of motion. 100%.
Basically the bicep of your leg. Try to simulate whatever you do for your biceps for your hamstrings and attack them just as hard.
Yeah.
Don't go light on your hamstrings. Your hamstrings are a big muscle group and they need to be beaten the shit out of. Do not go light on them.
No. So this is like the bodybuilding information you're gonna get from most. Is like it's a fine line between, art and then just beast mode-ish, meathead-ish stuff. Bro, you gotta do this, man. It's like, no. It's better that you actually have a load that you can, be more specific. You know what I'm saying? Like, I would say, like, training around 85% of your 1 rep max with hamstrings and having obviously good range of motion and contracting the muscle And then, better tips on that than just saying, gotta beat it hard, man, hit it hard.
Because if not, they will not respond. So here they're just warming up some leg extensions, no big deal. Again, make sure your toes are pointed. Make sure you are not wrapping that knee underneath the pad like I've talked about before in leg extensions, because I don't like the patella tendon being overstretched. And I think a lot of injuries are starting.
Oh man, Nick, come on, Nick. Before you go and do one of these things, you gotta know what you're talking about. I gotta call it out, tell like it is, and if you guys want to hate me in the section there, don't go right in. Because I'm gonna give you information, proper information, guys. Listen, the reason why it's been hard for people to do leg extensions or injuring, hurting your patella is because they disengage the quad muscle itself. For the most part, when people do leg extensions, what they do is they let the weight just kind of crack down, fling up. They do this kind of thing. So say here's a pad. They let the knee just kind of go boom, boom, boom. They're disengaging at the bottom of the lift and then recoiling and coming up. And that is going to put pressure, yes, on your knees. How you get around that is by engaging the entire time. You should never have your quads disengaged. You're doing knee extension and you're doing knee flexion. Just because you're doing a knee extension or a leg extension does not mean your hamstrings are not engaged to help pull the muscle or pull the leg back underneath under control, right? And again, if we want to really get the most out of your quad, is you want to get as much knee flexion as you can in a healthy way being activated so you can actually get that most of the extension. Because if we're going halfway, we're not getting the fullness of that entire leg quad muscles wrapping and pulling up. Now, the toes pointed again.
They're just primarily focused on warming up, so it's not an issue. They're not doing heavy weight, not doing...
It shouldn't be the difference. If you're warming up, your warming up reps should be your working reps in terms of your technique. When you warm up, you're just going through the motion that you're going to continue to do while you add a load and put more effort into it. But you're not just doing warm up to just kind of get a little blood in there and that's it. Anyway.
Crazy drop sets or supersets. It's just getting blood into the legs, and I like that. Right, so as you can see, they're doing static holds here. 10-second static holds. Now,
I'm going to be real pedantic. It's called isometric holds. So basically, there's ways you can do this. Basically, you can do isometric or isotonic. So isometric movement is contracting of a muscle, whatever. Isotonic, people won't say that anymore, but basically isotonic is basically static. So they're doing isometric holds. They're holding the muscle in a position.
Regan's toes are going down. Now, I don't know if Milos is instructing him to do that or not, but if I was doing these, I would make sure my toes are always pointed to the ceiling so I'm flexing my quads as much as possible. Now, obviously, just from a little flexion of your toe down is going to release a lot of stress on those quads.
Okay, so he just doesn't know the anatomy. I'm sorry, dude. Yo, Jid just messaged me about this, and I could have helped you with the video. Look, guys, the way you point your toes, if you're gonna think about this, when you're running, we've evolved. We ran, right? So when your feet touch the ground, it touches and it rolls like this, depending on your running. So you're going heel to toe, or if you're running properly, you should be running around the pad of your foot right there. But even doing that, you're getting a little bit of plantar flexion, dorsiflexion. You get a lot of this, like that. And that sends, connections, whatnot, up both sides of the leg. The hamstring to pull the leg, the knee up, and the quads extend it to go down. Then we're reaching the toe to grab and pull the floor. That's what we want to do. And that's how the leg kind of runs. You know what I'm saying? I can get into running mechanics and whatnot. I am a strength conditioning coach. So, yeah, anyway, what makes a difference between when you're pushing your toes, so remember doing plantar flexion, which is pointing your toes, and dorsiflexion, which is pulling your toes up. The difference, look, my pinky all messed up right there. My pinky don't do nobody's flexion. It just chills out there. And anyway, so the difference is if I pull my toes up, if I flex my toe in that plant and a dorsal flexion, what happens is I'm gonna squeeze a little more on my rectus femoris, right? People are like, what the hell is rectus femoris? You better watch your mouth, damn it. Speaking of that, rectus femoris is basically the middle part of your quad. It's that middle part of your quad, right? Now, if you point your toe, plantar flexion, you're gonna get more so of like you're gonna hit a little bit of like you're gonna activate, I would say, some more of your vastus laterals, or would it be like your quad sweep, right? You point your toes, right? Different ways you point your toes are gonna somewhat have an activation on the quad, but the quads are still doing knee extension. When it comes to in terms of activating your quad, knee extension includes all of the quadricep muscles, right?
Obviously, help him get through this 10-second static.
So he's wrong about that. He's completely wrong. So I'm gonna tell you guys, when you do this, make sure when you're doing leg extensions, make sure your butt's sitting in the back of that bench. You're pulling yourself into the bench, so you make sure your hip doesn't come off. And then we're gonna flex and engage. We're gonna breathe through and flex our quad and extend our quad. We're gonna lift the weight up by flexing, and then we're gonna control the weight coming down so we can actually feel the leg actually pulling it down, and then letting a good healthy amount of knee flexion to get a whole good activation with your entire quad, and then extending the leg again. That's a tip. Sorry, man. I get kind of like, if you guys know me, I get like this when it comes to like, technique and stuff. Like, if you don't know what you're saying, just give a good tip and leave it at what you know. Don't try and go outside of what you don't know. Like, I'm not gonna say things I'm not gonna try and teach you something I don't know. I'm not gonna try and go to levels that I don't have an expertise. I don't have the same qualifications as a chiropractor would have. Like a Jordan Shallows being a chiropractor and a strength and conditioning coach. He's got the amount of information of extension he has, having that chiropractic background and everything else like that elevates this shit. So I'm not even gonna try and talk about that shit. I'm not even close. I'm gonna be like, hey, go chat with that dude. He's way better than I am at that stuff. So I'm gonna talk in my realms. What's he saying?
Hamstring. He's like because tendon where Regan has that pad is very important. Why? Because you want to treat your hamstrings like a bicep, and you want that tension on your hamstring. If that pad goes a little lower, what's going to happen is you're going to feel that tension in the back of your knee, more so in the top of your calf than more so in your hamstring. Now, especially because Regan's taller.
Okay, so that's another wrong. So here's the thing, right? So if you put it this way, anything further away from your midline is going to be that much harder. Meaning, like, your midline is your core, right? So if I'm putting something and I have to flex something, I have to flex like a hamstring. And the weight of the flex happens, we're going to do like this. How can I do this? We're going to go like this. We're going to go like this. Anyway, so we're looking at something flex. I need to get a freaking, give me this. We're going to find somebody give me a freaking, what do you call it, skeleton or some shit. Anyway, we want flexion, right? We're just to say this is a hamstring, right? Don't worry about this up here. The hamstring is doing this, okay? Now, if I put the weight closer down to this point here, the amount of weight isn't that hard because it's so close to that lever happening, right? Hamstrings are here, this is your knee, and this is like your foot down here. Now, if I take the weight and I push the weight further and further away, it's going to make me have to work that much harder to move that weight because the weight is getting further away. The point, like, the further away the weight is from your body, the more weight there is on that lever and gravity and whatnot. So that's going to make it that much harder to pull. That's the thing. You're not going to feel in the back of your knee. What happens if I'm doing like dumbbell lying hamstring curls? The reason why you feel in the back of your knee is because you're getting a lot more activation because the weight's so much further away. That's what I was talking about, man.
There's something to pay attention to. Force that the tension is always on the hamstring throughout the entire range of motions. Just something to pay attention.
He's saying some of the right stuff. You need to keep all the weight on the hamstring. To make things easier for you, make sure the pad probably is sitting in the back, your bottom of your calf, and the top of your Achilles, right? Between there. There's a spot where you want to have the pad. Okay? There you go, right? Should have just said that. So we got this. I want to hear what he says.
squat machine, which is an amazing machine. Okay, this is one of my favorite squat machines. And why? Because there's no pressure in your lower back. There's no pain
100%.
anywhere else except for your quads. It really isolates your quads. A lot of mistakes I see people make are taking that back off the pad. You notice how Regan's back is like
great tip.
Against that pad behind him.
Absolutely amazing tip.
If your back starts to come off that pad too much, you're going to get a lot of pressure in your lower back, a lot of pressure in your hamstrings, a lot of pressure and tension where you should not have it.
Definitely not in your hamstrings, but like if you took your back, basically just don't take your pad off your back off the pad. Take your back off the pad, you can put your lower back in harm's way. You put all the pressure basically on your lumbar spine, and that's it for you. There's other parts where it goes too as well too, but like if you take your back off the pad, you're not just gonna feel it in your lower lumbar spine, but you feel it more in your knees as well too. He's completely right on that. So great tip for sure on that machine.
You notice Milos only has them going down to 90 degrees. Why? Because burying this machine is going to do nothing except hurt your patella tendon, hurt your knees, and incorporate glutes, hamstrings, which we're not focused on right now. They're focused on quads.
Okay, so that's what we got a little wrong again. So yes, we don't have to go ass to grass. There's no point of that at all. There's no need in that machine. That machine is great because it does help you with an actual, like, more of a natural squat flow. Now, if we want to hit our quads, we need to have knee flexion. I'm getting so sick of people messing this up. It's an old school thing. It's been the most old school way of thinking that's been already like we've already advanced past thinking that doing lunges or whatever, having a straight 90 degree in your knee is going to help with your quad. It's not. You need to have that flex. We need to have a healthy amount of flexion of that knee traveling over your toe. Not like over on top so your heel comes off the ground, but if your heel can stay on the ground and if you can have good dorsal flexion and your knee travel over your toe with good knee flexion, then you're working your quads. Having your knees stay straight 90 degrees does not help your quads. Get that out of your head. It's so frustrating seeing that. Frustrated. Need to wear my Pistons jerseys for this one.
So important because so many guys think ass to grass is the way you get big legs.
And he's right about that. He's 100% right. You don't have to go ass to grass, but we need a level of knee flexion in order for us to activate the quad better, more optimal. You're not think of the range of motion. Like a healthy range of motion for your actual quad, if you want to know, honestly want to know, you should be able to take your leg, like, look, watch. You should be able to pull your foot up and your heel should come at least like 6 inches from your butt. If you want to do a healthy assessment of how, like, you know, flexible or how mobile your quads, hip flexor and so forth, you should be able to come 6 inches from your ass, your heel. So your range of motion for your quad is pretty low. Is there any need for that point to go ass to grass? No, because you're just basically deactivated when you're that low in that kind of machine or any machine at that point. But again, you still need a healthy amount of deflection. I think a little more than 9 degrees. So if you're like thinking this, we're thinking like this, like 45 degrees. You're fine. Gotta stop putting this stuff out because it's like bad information.
Also, the tempo of the exercise. Very slow, very controlled, no jerking, no cheating, no bouncing, no momentum.
Yes. 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 He's right. So here's the thing about Nick, what I'm kind of getting. He training with Nick will probably be amazing because he's trying to explain things the way he feels, and I don't think it's coming out the right way. You know, what he's saying is very, 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 those are great points. You're contracting your muscle while adding a load. We're not just moving weight around. We're contracting muscle while adding a load.
And that weight starting to push you down on the ground, you can move that tension throughout the ball of your foot, the heel.
Yes. Okay, he's got that. Okay, good. Almost. You definitely want to push through your heels, but you want to 100% still grab with your toes when you're pushing through there. Everything is grabbing. Your toes are like your fingers, right? Right? That we use these things. Imagine not having toes. Like if you don't have a big toe, you'd be screwed. You won't be able to walk. So use those toes to grip in the floor while you push the entire foot on the ground, not just the heel.
Just make sure your toes are not doing the pushing. Your heels are.
The toes should. Everything's pushing. Everything's pushing.
On this sled, Very close stance, medium stance. Knees are driving inwards, they're not driving outwards. That's very important because he's trying to focus more on the sweep, the outer part of the quad. Also, pay attention to the range of...
What? Okay, so, oh my God, wow. I didn't think it'd be like this. Wow. Look, I'm going to coach you guys up on something. Your toes need to be aligned with your knees. When you're squatting, we don't want any knee valgus, so we don't want your knees moving in, and we don't want them also going out too much either, because then you're rolling on the outside of your foot. So when you do squats or any kind of squatting or hinging movement from the ground, you want your feet plastered on the ground, gripping with your toes and your heels. Everything's pointed, everything's touching the ground. And then we're going to externally rotate a little bit at the hips, in activating the glute maximus, already pulling those hips out, so it aligns the knees with the toes. So if you have a little bit of a angle like this, that means your knees are in that alignment as well too, because then you are hitting the entire leg, glutes as well as your quads. It's wrong. It's wrong.
What they're doing is they're doing a sumo squat. And you notice how Regan's back is not on the pad. He's driving away from the pad. Now, why are they doing it like this? Because they're focused on his abductors. So you can do this on the Smith machine.
Sumos don't focus in your abductors. So to help you guys out, maybe his kid got on accident, but to make it easy for you guys, this is how we learn, make easy ways to learn. When you're doing sumos, you're doing adduction, you're not doing abduction. Abduction would be your legs going away from your body. Type of like if he was doing like a side step or something, or and how he's doing it, what I'm recommending is you just don't do this anyway because it's not healthy for your back. Just do a proper like sumo, please, like that. This is not a good way to do a sumo on any parts.
They're doing it like this because they're focused on his abductors.
No, they're focused on abductors at all.
I don't suggest you do this at all with free weight. It's impossible. Because you're focused on making sure the weight is stabilized by a machine or a bar, and your focus is keeping those hips driving straight to the floor. So what I mean is, instead of squatting with your ass back first, like you're sitting on a toilet seat, you're squatting straight down in a straight line. And when you come up, you're squeezing with your abductors and your butt cheeks.
You're not squeezing the abductors.
This is going to work all abductors.
No, it doesn't do abductors. If you're going in, it's adductors. Adductors. We got to bring up an anatomy chart for this guy. Yo, Nick, I love you, but what the heck? This is not right at all. Guys, this is wrong information. This is literally wrong. All of it's wrong.
Primary focus here, though, is to work on the abductors, and that really gives you that...
He's saying it wrong. He keeps saying abductors. He's wrong.
This is a great exercise, but it freaking hurts.
It's a squat still. It's still a squat. It's a sumo squat. There's no abduction in sumo squatting.
Bars there still, he doesn't unrack them, and that's because they're simulating like a rest pause movement so that Regan can't bury it and that it keeps the tension on the quads the entire time. And notice where Regan's feet position are. They're not high up on the sled. They're pretty much like parallel to where his kneecaps were if he was like 90 degrees. If you bent his leg 90 degrees, that's where he puts his legs up, because you don't want to go high up because then it's going to incorporate more hams. And it's going to put more tension in his glutes where he doesn't want it.
So everything was right, and then he had to save the glutes. Your glutes are not being activated when you're doing hamstring, when you're doing leg press. I'm sorry. I don't care where you put your legs or anything. It's not. For you to work your glutes have to do hip flexion and then hip extension. See, this is your butt. It has to do this and then this. When it's in a machine, is not doing anything. You still have a 90 degree at your hips. Your hips need to go from like this to this. If you did like a kick and then your whole body went up like this, like you pushed all the way up, then yeah. So everything was right until the last little part. Just so you know that this is why you got to be very careful at who you're watching or looking at in terms of like training, because you're getting wrong advice. Unfortunately, 80% of what he said was wrong. Dead serious. I'm sorry. Anyway, I hope you guys liked the video, guys. I gotta end it right here, guys. If I look like a dick or sound like a dick, I'm sorry. Take this shit serious. When people start doing this stuff and they want to give out advice, it can get people hurt or confused, or then we're just spreading more misinformation. If you know what you're talking about, talk about it. If you don't, just don't talk about what you don't really know. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think this channel is awesome. I like his channel is dope. It's hilarious. He's, he's the only guy doing what he's doing when it comes to, the news and everything. Like he's CNN and Fox all together. You know what I'm saying? Whatever. But when we're talking about training, all someone has to do is know 5% more than you, and you think they know everything. So I'm gonna say on that. Anyway, guys, hope you guys enjoyed the video, guys. If you did, guys, make sure you guys like, subscribe, and share. I'm coming with a tell like it is, transparent, vulnerable truth. CoachingJohnTheSheep.com. If you guys want good coaching, I'm talking coaching throughout the week, coaching you up on your form, all that stuff. Basically, like I'm an app in your pocket. Get on the coaching. If you want to know what it's all about, book a phone consult. And end the consult, I deduct the consult off any package that you pick. And guys, if you want to do that, check out my free emails. Make sure you hit the free emails for sure, because you're getting private free info, free videos on training, optimal training tips and everything like that. So make sure you guys sign up for my emails. Hit the link below and grab an ebook. Push Pull Legs Training ebook will help you out. All terminology you need to know is in that book for you to get your gains for all your training. Even with the Push Pull Legs training samples that are in there, full training for intermediate, beginner, and advanced. Anyway, guys, hit those descriptions below that help save your life or change your life for the better. HLT supplements. Let's get checked. And guys, add me on Instagram and TikTok. Send me your progress pics, your foodie pics, and your training clips, and I'll repost it for you guys. You know how it is. Iron sharpens iron. Progressive overload your life. In the meantime, keep dream chasing.